So some people might feel overwhelmed by the thought of starting a prayer room because they might think, I don't have a place that I can set aside in my facility for prayer. I don't have an extra room. And there are just so many different ways to integrate prayer and to create space for prayer beyond just, a dedicated prayer room. And so I'm going to go through 4 different ideas for you here. The first way is just to integrate it into an existing service or event. So let's say you're holding a special youth group night or a special service at your church. You can just integrate prayer stations into that. So maybe you shorten your talk to a 10-minute talk, and then you release people to go through prayer stations for the next half hour. And so you set up the space that you're already in, the sanctuary or the youth group room, set up the stations around the room, and then after you give your little intro, you just release people to go around and go through the stations and pray, and then come back and kind of share what stuck out to them. And that is a really powerful way to create space for prayer without having to dedicate a whole room to it. The second way would be to do a pop-up prayer room. This is something our church has started to do, and it's been amazing. So we have once a month, we've dedicated Saturday mornings from 8 to 1, the prayer room is open. So we set up a room with prayer stations and, an art corner. We have a kids corner, and people can just come in and pray during that specific time. We have some people playing music in the background, but you could do it with the CD player. And that is another way to do it. You don't need a permanent place. You just pick a room, a classroom, or the sanctuary, depending on size, set it up just for that time, whether that's once a month, once a quarter, once a week, and just say, it's open, pop in during this time and pray. The third option would be setting up just like a hallway or a wall with prayer stations. You could kind of like the idea of like an art show, right? You hang up the stations along a long hallway, and people between services can just walk by them and meditate and reflect on each station. We've seen people do this in a coffee shop on a wall where they just set out the stations and put the supplies on a little table underneath them, and people can kind of stand, and all of a sudden that becomes a place that helps them pray. And then lastly, you could set up, if you have a room, you can actually set up a permanent prayer room. And this is what I would really recommend, because that is going to be such a blessing to your community to just have a place that anytime the building is open, they can go and pray. And I'll talk more in another video about what that would look like, but it could just look like having stations that you rotate out on maybe a monthly, quarterly basis to kind of keep it fresh. And then you have other things in the room like a CD player that has some quiet music playing and place to set out prayer requests, but just a place they can go to pray. And so those are 4 ideas. In the next video, I'll talk a little bit more about prayer stations specifically and how to actually set up a space